chill with the car, not a
But
tuk-tuk.
it does not look very safe because that's the back door, and I guess we can hop out at any point and not pay the driver, but we're not gonna do that. But we are really on our way to the Light Festival. We're not gonna release any because I really don't want to send more waste up in the sky and eventually just land somewhere as garbage. But we're just gonna check out what the locals do and enjoy that. So I'll give you a peek of this crazy car that we're in. We're actually really lucky that no one else is here
Yeah, they usually pack.
with us. I'll show you the other side because it's really funny. But we're having a Lux ride right now. That is definitely the exhaust from the car. This is definitely not very environmentally friendly.
Light Festival. And you can see all the lights.
There we go.
Now, this is definitely a sight that you would often see in Asia, whether it's on holidays, national holidays, or just gatherings. You are absolutely surrounded by people, and there's no way to get any personal space at all, but we're here to see what's happening. Here is one of the lanterns, and up close, just taking off. A few days before, actually, my mom and some friends here also attending the wedding were able to launch their own wish into the sky. And I was quite surprised by how much gold and how extravagant a lot of the temples, plus this floating ship, it seems to be. There's a lot of temples, Buddhist temples, and they are very extravagant, and sometimes they remind me of palaces. So I'm not quite sure what exactly these lanterns or the headpiece the woman was wearing, what they exactly mean. But one thing for sure is that gold seems to be something that they use a lot to decorate things that they respect. So coming up next soon will be actually a floating thing that is just to celebrate the king, the late king. So that was the Light Lantern Festival that happens once a year in Chiang Mai, and now we're off to a hill adventure, half-day adventure. Here's just some street food that Jachym filmed for us. Just take a look at what the local people eat. So it's a very windy hill, and we're going up here to Doi Suthep, which has both a very large temple. There are many temples, many which are large, but Doi Suthep is a bigger one with stairs leading up to it, which you will see soon. And we are also here to see a local village. And it has become very commercialized, but the village that we're visiting is called Doi Pui Mung Hill tribe. There are a lot of ethnic minorities living in such tribes, and like I said, this one's very commercial, quite touristic. So within the village itself, there's a little museum, which I will show you. But a lot of it is just little markets selling their embroidered clothing or just the local tea, because they grow tea up here in northern Thailand, up on the hills. And there are beautiful views here. It's such a contrast here up on the mountain versus down below in Chiang Mai. So here we are actually arriving into the village, and it's very interesting because you're up on a hill, the roads are very bumpy, they're not well maintained, and then suddenly there's this big village waiting for us to visit. So here we are. Lots of jungle, which Jachym and I honestly we miss quite a bit, and just a local marketplace. There are a lot of stores beyond here, which is more of the parking lot. But yeah, the entrance to the village.
I'm about to take my life in my...
One thing that Jachym and I learned on this trip is that quite a few of the people, the children who have lived here for hundreds of years are actually stateless. So technically they don't have a passport, they're not allowed to get a passport, and they aren't Thai. Even though they have been living in Thailand in these northern mountains for hundreds of years, whether it's through conflict within their original country, like in Myanmar, Burma, China, and so on, many of them fled or just migrated into these mountains, and they solely depend, for example, this village depend on tourism to survive. And these are very typical huts that they would live in, even though this particular village is very commercialized and isn't a very good depiction of how they would normally live, but many of them do live in such huts. And this is just a cute little garden behind the museum. And one of the ethnic minorities are the women who wear brass rings and make their necks seem extremely long. And actually the neck doesn't get much longer, it's the pressure of the weight of the brass rings pressing onto their rib cage that makes it seem like the neck gets much longer. And the brass rings, legend has it that it would protect you from tigers, so it's not just for aesthetics. And they also grow opium. Opium is a problem, substance abuse within some of the tribes. So it can be a very difficult life up here. But beautiful views.
Hey, what you doing?
Eating corn. It's very delicious. I should give it back to you, otherwise I eat it all. Okay. Well, that sort of thing in the middle.
Hey, Jachym, what you up to?
Eating nuts and looking at the sunset. Want some?
The air up here on the mountain is so much better than the polluted air down in Chiang Mai with all the cars and all the funny red taxis that we've been taking.
Yeah.
It makes us realize that we really do prefer nature, and we actually really love mountains and hills and forests. So here we are at the Doi Suthep temple. It's very touristic, I must admit, but it's very grand, very, very, very grand, which is something we are not so used to because of Zen Buddhism and the type of Buddhism that we know a little bit about. So this is very different to us. There aren't just tourists within this temple, which is a very good thing. There are resident monks, as you saw, who are chanting mantras. There are local Thai people praying, and they pray with different things, with incense, with a flower, in this case a lotus flower, or with a small candle, and they represent different things. One is for the Buddhist community, one is for the teachings, and one is for enlightenment. There's a little gecko, so everyone seemed to be welcomed here within the temple. In Chinese, what the little girl just did is called Jachym, which means you shake a bundle of different fortune. It's almost like fortune telling. You shake it, and whatever comes out is the message that you need to hear. So that thing I was actually really pleasantly surprised to see here, because I know that from a Chinese tradition. There's beautiful wood carving with gold leaf all over the temple. It's very extravagant. And one thing I'd particularly love are the little bells that hang from the ceiling, from the rooftops. They make a beautiful sound when there's a breeze. And not to mention also these wall paintings. There are a lot of Buddhist statues. The one lying represents a certain day of the week, and they all have certain meanings. There's a lot to get into, but just want to show you a snippet of this particular temple on top of Doi Suthep. And originally, this very temple, legend has it, was inspired by a white elephant that was bound on this hill by a king many generations ago. So that's why it's up here. It was made for the king back in the day. And here is the night view of Chiang Mai. So we've been here for a little bit of time now, settled in a bit, and this is our first day trip out into the surrounding area, just to get to know what is here. And the culture is very different, and we'll keep sharing more with you on this journey.